when I can finagle that, because some of it's hard to do some of it remotely. The way our system works, the database is a little cranky. So some of it's easier to do when you're there. So
well, my older daughter, Melissa, just started a new job 2 weeks before they had to work at home at the Huntington Museum in Pasadena. She's working on a presidential papers project, and she's the only one. She has to get stuff out of the vault, so she can't do that at home. So I'm not sure what she's doing, but
wow,
there's certain things that you can accomplish at home and some you can't.
Right, exactly. That's the problem. I think, all the museums are facing that.
Right.
And now trying to ramp back up. A lot of my friends were posting on Facebook yesterday, museum friends, that they're being allowed to open, but they can't because they can't get masks and hand sanitizer and all that stuff. So they're in other parts of the country.
So they still can't get masks?
Not in some places. There's what is it called? Backlogs. That's not the right word, but.
Right. So that's an opportunity for fundraising.
Oh, good. We're getting some people joining us here at 10.
Handprints fabric, right?
What?
You're having masks made of handprints fabric.
Yes. And it's, of course, super popular. In fact, one of our handprints masks went to Margaret. Hopefully she'll receive it soon. I know your daughter has it, so hopefully she'll get it to you soon.
My sister had some old fabric, handprint fabric. She made one too out of the butterfly.
Good. Yeah, we've been working with an organization in town that's trying to have them made first using the fabric, and then they'll be distributed to senior citizens in town who either can't access it, can't afford it, whatever it might be. So at least 100 will go out.
You're going to see all those things on the street again.
That's right.
I've got more fabric I can send out.
Actually, I was going to ask you about that.
Need it.
Offline, I'll ask you. I think we might be able to use it. So
okay. Well, I have some of those bolts, the rolls.
Okay. We'll talk offline about that.
Okay.
Great.
And Kathy, I just wanted to say hi.
Hi,
so nice to see you.
Great.
Is Susie going to be on?
Oh, I don't, I doubt it. I didn't tell her to be on. So I didn't tell her to watch it.
All right, tell her I said hi.
And they're all together all the time. So I didn't think.
A lot going on. Be sure to tell her I say hi.
I will.
Hi, Kathy.
Hello.
It's like old home week, right?
Tell who you are.
All right.
We are live and we are recording.
All right. So welcome, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started, although I'm sure people will be joining us either via Facebook or via Zoom as we move forward. I have a favor to ask. If you are not speaking or planning to speak soon, if you could mute yourself.
I'll take care of this.
Oh, Jack's going to do that for me. Thank you. Awesome. That just keeps the background noise to a minimum. Well, we are thrilled to have you here on our, let's see, this is our 4th Marblehead Memories meeting. We had 2 in person, and the last 2 have been virtual. So we're excited that we're able to keep this moving. And we want to thank National Grand Bank for their support of all Marblehead all Marblehead Memories project activities there are major banks, so we're thrilled to have them. And I also am so excited that Molly and Kathy are here today to talk about handprints. They have given so much to the community, and their donation to the Marblehead Museum of their archive and their items is just an amazing collection. And we had such grand plans for 2020 for the summer, for a big party and an exhibit. And, because of everything going on, we've had to delay that. And it being their 50th anniversary year, it's such a shame. And I feel so bad about that. But, rest assured that next year, we'll pick everything back up again as if nothing happened and celebrate them the way they deserve to be celebrated. But enough of that, because they're here with us today. And so what I thought we would do is I have a few questions to get us rolling and get them sharing some of their memories and thoughts on their business together. And then we would certainly like to hear from other people that have either questions for them, of course, or if you have your own Marblehead handprints memories that you would like to share, we would love to hear that. And Jack, did you raise your hand?
I did not, no.
Oh, sorry. I thought you wanted
No,
to say
that's
something.
okay.
Sorry, this is the fun of virtual, right? Is that you're trying to balance everything at the same time. So we'll go ahead and get started. And like I said, people will probably join us. But so Kathy
Lauren,
and
I'm sorry, I will raise my hand one quick second.
Go ahead.
Just on the production end, sometimes these meetings can get hacked. That's why I'm here sort of on the production end of things to keep an eye out. If the meeting ends abruptly, it's because that happened. But I'm not expecting it to with the sort of the safeguards that we have in place. And if you click on the, let's see here. If you click on chat, I think it's chat.
Yes.
Or if you click on the 3 buttons, bear with me 1 second here. There's a way to raise your hand. Although we've got a small enough crowd right now that if you want to, if you have a question, just raise your hand. And other than that, here we go.
Okay. And the one thing I forgot to say too is that one initiative that we've been working on since this pandemic happened, and it's thanks to Molly and Kathy sharing their supplies and allowing us to do so, is we had some surplus Handprints fabric. And so we've been working with another organization in town to have masks made from that, and they will be distributed to senior citizens. So that's an exciting initiative, and one that we thank Molly and Kathy for allowing us to use some of that surplus fabric for that purpose. So, okay, great. So let's see. So
We lost Molly.
We lost Molly. Well, that's not good. Hold on. Hold everything.
It's good because we have a few more people jumping on at the same time, which is great.
Sorry for the delay, everybody. We lost one of our founding Handprints entrepreneurs. So hold on 1 second. We'll try to get her back. Oh, and there's a note. Thank you, Beth. You can raise your hand physically and wave to us if you have a question or a comment. You can also raise your hand virtually if you click on the participants button down below in your Zoom window. And then there's a way to raise your hand. So thank you for sharing that information, Beth. Appreciate it. All right, well, Kathy, can I ask you to start, and we'll hopefully get Molly in soon. I'll try to get in touch with her and see if there's anything I can help with while you're sharing. But my first question, of course, is how did Handprints, how did all of this come about? How did you meet each other? How did you decide, hey, let's start a business? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I'll tell from my point of view, because I was always a kind of a craft person, trying everything, and did block printing on fabric for a while and realized that silk screening would be a lot more efficient, but I had never silk screened. And so I saw that Molly was teaching at the Arts Association and signed up and learned basically the process. And then the two of us became more interested in actually doing it on fabric. She had some experience with it, but we also experimented together and set up a table in her kitchen where we could work on 3-yard pieces of fabric. We both had little girls who played together outside the gate. Well, we did that, and so that was really the beginning. And I think she had taught art, so she came at it from a different place. But she was a good teacher, so and we did bond right away. It was nice.
And did you? So you went in with that, just deciding you wanted to learn the process.
I wanted to learn to print on fabric.
Mm-hmm. And then what were some of the first things you printed, and how did that turn into something you would actually do as a business?
We did these 3-yard pieces of fabric. Our screens were roughly, I would say, 12 or 11 by 14. They were quite small. So even to go across a piece of fabric, 44 inches, required several pieces. So, and to try to register them. but we learned how to do it. And then we thought, well, what could we make? And of course we had children on our minds. So we thought carriage quilts would be great because there were a lot of babies in town then. So we did carriage quilts. Lissa Carlin bought the first one. We did neckties, and it was the 70s, and so they were very flashy neckties. And so then those were our first products, and plus the little bits of, the 3-yard pieces of fabric. And we decided to have an open house again at Molly's house and invite everyone we knew who was interested in art, design, sewing, anything like that. And that's when we first presented our fabrics.
Well, I remember back then Marblehead was a very crafty town.
It was. Oh, there were. Yes, I hope that people are collecting examples of everyone's work, because there were so many handcrafted items, from sandal shops to the kites and Tori's jewelry, which she's still doing, but Julie Key's ceramics. I mean, really, it was a wonderful place. Silversmithing, great crafts at that time. Everywhere, of course. People at home were doing macrame.
My mom did stained glass. My mom made a lot of my clothes and
Right.
my family's clothes. And I mean, it was just, that's how everybody, and it was a social thing at the same time.
Oh yes, it was very popular then. There was crewel work, embroidery, knitting, needlepoint, on and on.
So at this point, you're not in a business necessarily yet. It's more just the two of you. So how did you decide to, or how did you literally start this as a business, and how did the name come about?
Molly will have to remember how the name came about. We learned that Fred Wood's space on Washington Street was available, and it wasn't really practical to keep doing it on this one piece of plywood in Molly's kitchen. So we were able to rent the space. We put a plywood table in each of the front windows so that people walking by could see us printing. And then the back room had the fabrics and the products that we produced, that we made ourselves. We were using oil-based paints at that time. We would take them to the backyard and hang them on a line. We also took them to the laundromat. Hi, Molly. Good. You could.
I've been having a lot of trouble lately with my computer.
Oh, I'm sorry, Molly.
And heat set the inks at the laundromat. So
that's so funny. So you had to bring them to the laundromat, literally.
Yeah, but it was down the street then. Marblehead had a lot of drugstores and laundromats and all kinds of services.
Oh, wow. Well, Molly, I'm thrilled that you're back on. Can we?
While you can.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, let's back up for a few seconds. We got Kathy's perspective on how you met and how Marblehead Handprints came about. What were you doing? What were you working on at the time? And how did Marblehead Handprints sort of become, as far as your perspective is concerned?
I was teaching art at the junior high school, which was, I don't think it was called a middle school then, it was the junior high school. And one of the other teacher there had asked me if I wanted to teach a course in silk screening at the Marblehead Arts Association. Just, she knew I had done some silk screening, and I figured that I probably knew more than the people I'd be teaching, so I said, why not? And that's been my sort of go-to saying for the rest of my life here. Why not? Just jump in, even if you don't know what you're doing. So I taught that, I don't remember, it might have been 1969, the first one on paper serigraphy. And I think Kathy took that one, and I didn't know her before then, and she wanted to know how to print on fabric. my senior project in college was learning how to actually make the silk screens, do the designs for them. And I had done some printing on fabric. So I figured I knew more than the people I was teaching. So I went ahead and did that. And as that ended, Kathy and I decided to start printing together, because I had the little space in the house on 39 Front Street, which used to be what was the gift shop? I can't remember what it was called. I should know. But anyway, we just got together about 2 times a week probably and printed these 2-yard pieces. And I think we didn't really think about being in a retail space. I can't remember, her name was Anderson, was her last name. She had the little space up there next to Fred Wood's. And she's the one who came to us and said, I'm getting out of the space, do you want it? And it was $100 a month, which I don't know what would be equal to now, but so we said, sure, why not again? Who knew what we were?
Barbara Anderson.
Barbara Anderson, that was her name. And I remember doing a lot of trash picking early on as we started getting patterns out of boxes off of the street. I don't know what they were, but we did it on a shoestring. So that's how we got into the retail, even though we'd had a show at my house. Our first, it was probably about 6 months into when we started printing, and Kathy and I each had dresses on that we'd made out of our fabric, and we had already been making some products at that point. So we didn't start slowly. We just sort of jumped into everything.
And how did you, Kathy said you might remember how you came up with the name Marblehead Handprints.
Well, I think Kathy liked the Marimekko fabrics. We certainly couldn't take that name. And there was Key West Handprints at the time too. They had already started down in Key West where Kathy is now, but I think that's what prompted us to come up with the name. And then we had the little very crude handprint initially, which got a little more refined as we went along, but I think that's how we came up with the name, because of Key West Handprints.
So was your sort of iconic fabrics, or the one color onto one color, was that because of the technology available, or?
No, it was because each new color meant another screen, and that meant more money.
No.
And so we were being very frugal, running over to the fabric store in Salem. I don't remember what that was called, but we'd buy our stuff with 10% discount, a couple of yards at a time. And so we just started doing the one color, and people really liked it, and it became iconic and sort of timeless. But each new color, if we added them to I think at one point we started adding a couple colors, but we went back to just one color. But it meant more money, basically.
And Kathy mentioned that your first products were carriage quilts, neckties, and then did you start expanding? Well, we know you did, but how did you start expanding into other products? Were those things you all came up with?
When we were still at my house, I think we had come up with some pillows, and this is the one that I showed you earlier that I think it's got really, really old designs and fabrics in it. It's the patchwork one that we had. I don't think I've ever washed it either, but anyway, I still have this, and it has really, really old designs in it. And some of the, we had carriage quilts and some crib quilts. I don't know when we did, I think we did the ties a little bit later after we moved up to Washington Street. But we weren't really designing and doing stuff in my house that long, because it was in May of 1971 that we moved up to Washington Street. So I think we had 1 or 2 shows at my house, and we invited anybody who was interested in art, design, fabric, clothing, and that's how the word sort of spread.
I see everybody has their handprints with them, so
Yes.
we'll do a show and tell
Yeah,
later on. I promise
definitely.
everybody.
I love it. And Kathy, what was I going to ask? Did you how did you split the workload? Were you in charge of one aspect and Molly was in charge of the other? How did that work for you both?
Early on, we really didn't split it that I remember. I mean, we both had young children. We would go shopping for fabrics together, and we had the little girls with us, and they'd be running all around the store while we picked out our fabrics. But it was more about doing and when we had time to do it. And we were only open a few days a week. Or do you remember when they were, Molly?
I have an ad that I found that it was open initially at Front Street at Tuesday from 2 to 5 or something. That was it. Then we were up
it
at.
wasn't really a serious retail business at that point, but it was a place to print and to start. And that's when I don't know exactly when we hired Libby Inslee to come and help with the printing.
That was later. When we hired Nancy Foster first, because she was down at Port Canvas, and we were up at Fred Wood's at the Washington Street place then, because Libby wanted to print on canvas so she could make a tennis bag for her family. And that's when we got Nancy involved with it.
So she wasn't working
doing that.
She wasn't working for us when she printed that canvas for the.
Yeah.
We printed it.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that how you got it? But was that the beginning of the canvas,
Yes.
printing on canvas and the
Her
bags?
idea to have a canvas bag.
In March of 1972. Yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
we pirated Nancy Foster from Port Canvas.
Down by the dock there.
Well, that was the great thing about Handprints, right? Is that you were very willing to allow, from what I understand, allow people to come up with ideas. It wasn't just that it had to come from you two, but that you had employees that came up with other thoughts. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I mean, that was dynamic. It was a lot more interesting. We certainly didn't have all the ideas by far.
But we had a lot of ideas.
Try anything.
Too many.
So what were some of who were some of the people that worked with you, and what ideas, what sort of products did they try out? Do you remember?
Well, Libby Inslee came to work for us as a printer, and he printed a beautiful piece of velveteen. And Jean Woodward had it made into a lovely long dress that she was wearing to an event at the museum, I think. She took it to the cleaners to have it pressed before she went, and all of the print came off.
She had it cleaned. Yeah.
They cleaned it by mistake.
She had no print left.
There was no, she wore the dress, but there was no print on it.
Learned a lesson on that one.
Oops.
When we were there, we also, I think at that point we were trying to incorporate or set up the business. I don't think it was incorporated, but however we did it. And we had a lawyer, Nanny Seaman's husband, Peter, who was also a lawyer for Marimekko. And Molly and I had this dream that we would silk screen and make money and go to Finland and see how it was really done. Anyway, one Sunday morning, Nanny Seamans brought Armi Ratia, the founder of Marimekko, in to meet us, for us to meet her. She didn't, I mean, it was thrilling.
To meet us.
Well, to meet us. Yeah, I'm sure she didn't care about meeting us, but we were thrilled to meet her. You know, we were still in Fred Woods, and we still had our prints up on the wall on paper. And she looked around and she said, I like that one and that one. And of course, she'd chosen one of Molly's and one of mine. But she was not a really personable kind of person. She was dressed completely in European
black cape,
wool, you know, neutral colors, had very intense gaze, said very little, and but it was thrilling for us. And Nanny eventually bought enough fabric to do sheets.
Yeah.
So she had actually bed sheets made out of Handprints, blue on green fabric.
I remember that, yeah. So we
Are
eventually,
I know there are a ton of other local names of people that came to our garden party, which was so electric with people remembering Marblehead handprints. Paulie Leblanc.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, she did. She worked for us for a long time, did wonderful stitching. She pieced the quilts together, a lot of the quilts, or finished them, did pillows. She could do anything.
worked for us for a long time.
And she probably was the longest term person stitching fabric. But we had other people who picked things up and took them home. Marbleheaders would be, I don't know, I mean, there were just a lot. I think Pat Flaherty did some for a while. I mean, it's, we had also people working in the store. This was after moving down the street.
Well, we had also gone to Hood Sail Off to buy our first canvas. And I think that's when we ended up getting Nancy Loomis, who was married to a guy who worked at Hood's. And we ended up buying a lot of canvas from them initially because we didn't have a wholesale accounts at that point. And we also ended up buying some of his big industrial sewing machines for our canvas production.
That's right.
One thing that you've talked about that fascinates me is I guess the right word would be piecework that people did. You don't think of that in the late 20th century. The idea of it seems more like an early 20th century garment industry thing of people taking and doing at home, but you had employees doing that, right?
We had a lot of employees. I don't know at any particular time. We had a couple working in the factory, but the majority of the products that we produced were done by all women were working at home. And we had to be careful as we went on with our production, and it got bigger and bigger. One person only wanted to do one type of product and one person wanted to do another type of product. So it got very complicated trying to figure out our production schedule and who wanted to do what. And then we'd have a schedule every month for people to come in and pick up things and then bring them back.
But by that time, we had moved to the third floor of the corner of State and Washington. So we had a very large cutting table up there. And it was also a sorting and packaging table. And I think 4 sewing machines and our desk. And then the lower floor that was, what's her name? Booth's store for a while and is now a dress shop, was our printing space. And we had
one on State Street you're talking about.
Yeah, State, just down, it had been the garage for the building and it became our print studio. So we were still hand printing the fabrics at that point. And but we had the store then also on the corner part of there were 2 stores in that building.
So you went from Fred Wood's to Chadwick's Hardware, is that right?
It was still Chadwick's when we bought it. We didn't buy it. Our
former husbands bought it.
Yeah.
And Peter Morton and his wife put a natural food store on the other half.
That brings up a question that I have is what, if any, challenges did you face starting a business as 2 women in 1970?
Who wants to go? Do you want to go, Kathy?
I don't think we could have our own
credit cards.
We had to finance, when we started wholesaling, we had to finance with our husband's signatures to fill the inventory that we needed at the bank at National Grand. We always banked with Randy Goodwin at the National Grand. Those were probably our biggest challenges, don't you think, Molly?
Yeah, initial material that was put in the newspaper about us, we weren't even called by our names. We were not Molly and Kathy. We were Mrs. So-and-so and Mrs. So-and-so. So you can see where we were on the scale of importance to not the community, but what was happening at the time. And So they said, I didn't realize it at the time when we were going through all the feminine stuff and the ERA, and we just did what we were doing. We didn't even think about any of that. But I think, Lauren, I sent you the copy of a page out of the Marblehead Reporter in 1976 that had we had an ad in the bottom of the page, and then on both sides of the pages was for ERA and against ERA.
Mm-hmm.
So that all stuff was going on all around us. We weren't paying attention to any of that. But I think the hardest thing was getting credit cards in our own name. And the first time we went to the bank was when we got our first wholesale order with Saks Fifth Avenue, and we had to finance it.
So that's another great segue. Tell us about the expansion. I mean, you had a window at Saks Fifth Avenue of Handprints. That's amazing. So tell us how all that came about and how it led to further expansion.
The canvas line started in March '72. Mind you, that we'd only been up in our first place for a year, I think, by Fred Woods there. And I don't know who thought of it, but we thought, well, why not wholesale? We knew nothing about it. And I was doing a lecture up at Skidmore College to students and talking about the business and talking about the first wholesale order. And they said, well, how did you get it? I said, we picked up the phone and called them. Why not? Nobody picks up the phone anymore. And for some reason, we got an appointment, and we had enough of products in our canvas line at that point that Kathy and I went down with our little bags full of our canvas products. And the buyer we were supposed to see, we didn't know that buyers were not glamorous, and they were down in the basement of the buildings. And we hopped over all these boxes and everything, and the buyer wasn't there. We ended up in the vice president's office. I don't know if Kathy remembers how. I don't remember how. It was our charm, I guess.
I remember the buyer wasn't there.
Yeah, we ended up sitting on a couch in the vice president's office of Saks Fifth Avenue.
Our little linen dresses.
Yeah, doing our little dog and pony show and showing all our stuff. And he said, okay, he gave us an order for the store at Fifth Avenue. And I guess that's when we went down. That was in 1972. And Kathy and I went down on the train, and we stood in front of the window and listened to people talking about all our stuff. I don't have pictures of us standing in front of the window, but I do have a picture of the window. And after that, he turned around and ordered for the 22 stores, and we said, gulp. What are we doing? But that's when we first went to the store. To the bank, to the money store, and got our money to finance the production of the orders.
Well, we also had to farm out the printing to a hand printing place.
We didn't do it then. That was later. We
For
did
the
our printing.
22 stores.
Yep, we did it all.
We also had to wait for 22 payments.
Oh, so they wouldn't pay you up front.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. And then we
Nothing.
got, I still have it here. I'll send it up to the museum, but I have the original orders from them and all what went to which store all over the country.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
So, that was the beginning of our wholesaling, but we found it fairly fast, the wholesaling to big stores, even though we went to Jordan Marsh, Bullock's in Los Angeles. We were all over the country, but they took a portion out of the total that they were supposed to pay us, and then that's the way they operated, and we figured that we couldn't operate that way. So we ended up later on going to just doing some small boutique wholesaling where we could demand 50% down, the rest COD.
Mm-hmm.
So
you also had a number of stores. They were dealers as opposed to franchises. Is that?
yeah, well, initially we started with our own store, our second store in Nantucket, and that was another. I remember we were in the 86 Washington Street, and I don't know how we ended up talking about it. We said, well, why don't we do a store in Nantucket? Why not?
We knew someone who was flying to Nantucket, and
I don't know.
Nancy should go there and see about renting a store. It was that spontaneous. It was only because someone was going.
I had never been to Nantucket. I don't know if Kathy had been to Nantucket, but that was in 1974, I think.
So it wasn't part of some grand
No.
strategic business plan. You just said, hey, someone's going.
Oh,
And,
no.
you know, it was really kind of stupid too, because it was on South Wharf, which is not on the main street. And we were required to be open April through October. There was no heat in the building. There was
Rude.
there were no tourists in April, especially on the wharf. So we learned a lot by knowing a little bit more about real estate is important in retail.
Well, that was in 1973. I'm looking at my handprint timeline notes because otherwise I wouldn't remember that. But over the years, I think we were there till we actually closed the business.
Yeah, we were there 13 years in Nantucket, but several locations, finally on a good street, Union Street.
We ended up on Center Street. That was our
Or Center, I mean, not
Yeah.
Union, Center.
And then
So
go ahead.
no, I was saying our first stores by other people weren't until 1978, and that's when we also went to Faneuil Hall. The Rouse Corporation from here, from Columbia, was redoing Faneuil Hall, and I think that was one of the first retail places they redid, and we got in on the ground floor with them there.
They had done the South Building, and they were doing the North Building.
And for some reason, we got in on before the store opened. We had a cart there, and we can be proud to say we were Cart of the Month one month. So that was sort of a test of the market there before we went into, and they were trying to do great big spaces in that Faneuil Hall, and we ended up, I think, being ones who encouraged them to break up some of the bigger spaces so more mom and pop stores could come in, because we didn't need a big space. We could fit a lot of our products into small spaces.
We had 200 square feet, I believe. Erling Falk did a lot of stores in the North Building, including our little 200 square foot store. He designed, there were some very nice stores there that when they opened the building, they really recruited a variety of very independent stores, nice products, beautiful things.
That was great, yeah.
And it evolved, of course, because it was very expensive.
But in 1978, and I don't remember exactly when, but actually one of our first stores to open with other people was Annapolis. I had no idea. I'd been living here for 30 years or whatever, but the two young women who came in was Robbie Doyle, the sailmaker's wife, Janet, who I had as when I was teaching high school. And then her roommate from college was married to a sailmaker here in Annapolis. And they came into our store and they thought, oh, this would be great in Annapolis. Have you ever thought of having a store in Annapolis? We said, no. But that was the beginning of us starting to think about maybe being in other locations. And we worked out I think we did franchise initially because I've looked at all our records, but I came down to Annapolis in that March, I think, and helped them look at real estate. And it turned out that after they opened in 1978, we had another store, and Gail Norton from Newport had been in Marblehead, and she ended up doing our second store in Newport, which went all the years of our business too. But we eventually moved over to a distributorship system where we didn't want the financial burden of being the franchisors. We'd have to do guarantee marketing, everything else. And so a distributorship was, they could buy from us. We couldn't put a limit on it of what they bought, but they obviously wanted to look like our store. So we helped them with inventory and display ideas and all sorts of things. But distributorship, they licensed the use of our name for year after year. And we figured the more we had, it would help our finances with our manufacturing process because we'd have more orders.
And how many of those, do we have 11 or 13?
Oh no, there were more than that over the years.
So yeah, all across the country, right? Which is, I mean, in Marblehead, you know, it's such a,
They're all small, but
yeah.
like people who've always wanted to have a restaurant. There are people who have always wanted to have a store.
Well, that's a tribute to our designs too. Everybody thought, well, they're just going to be by the seaside. Well, they're not. They weren't. We had Ann Arbor, Michigan. We had them in Indianapolis. They were all over the country. Houston, Texas.
A tribute to the designs and the products, which I wanted to ask you both, and then I definitely want to open up to questions of others. What of all the amazing many products that you put out, what was your favorite product or your favorite design of each of you? Do you have one? Is that a hard question?
It's a hard question.
Sorry.
We loved all our stuff.
No, I like the fine fabric better than, I think the fine fabric for me has been more interesting over the years than the canvas. I did want to say one thing. When we had expanded that much, which is still small for, you know, a business, we still used cottage industry to make everything.
Yeah.
Found people who had industrial machines at home who could stitch the canvas, because that was, you know, the hardest to get produced.
You couldn't use a regular sewing machine with it.
Right. But it was always, everything was always produced by cottage industry, everything using the fabrics.
Even
until much later when he did clothing.
We had to do a lot of really careful paperwork to put all the orders together. It wasn't just whenever an order came in, we would do it. We finally got to a point where it would be, especially with our other stores, quarterly. They'd have to order for the quarter, so we could put all the things together, get our raw materials, and get it manufactured in time to get out to them. So we were highly organized at that point, but even though we didn't have a computer, we did it all by hand. But in 1975, though, was when we first had to, we went to another hand printer because we just couldn't keep up with the volume of printing ourselves. It turned out to be more an experimental space of trying out new designs and stuff. And our first printer was up in Lawrence. Don't remember their names, but
we did wallpaper and fabrics there.
It was all hand printed, and that's what we didn't want to. I think at one point they tried to do machine printing, and we said, stop, it goes too fast. If you get a mistake, 200 yards have gone by and we still have to pay for it. So I think we insisted on going up and watching at some point, but they didn't like us doing that. So, but over the years, I think we went through 4 different hand printers, 4 or 5.
I don't know. It was
Northeast.
Probably a dying industry, hand printed.
Yeah.
Except for maybe luxury wallpaper.
Well, we found out with our first printer that they were going bankrupt. We didn't know that, but we found that out when they were printing fabric for our Boston Symphony design in 1976. And they did not put, you need to put fixative into the color so it doesn't bleed. And they skimped on the fixative and it was blue on white. And Kathy and I were making ties and whatever for the symphony, and we came out with blue hands. We said, something's wrong here. And at that point, it was later on that Seiji Osawa and
Arthur Fiedler.
Fiedler were wearing ties of our fabric, and with it was after we fixed the problem, thank goodness.
Oh, good.
Have them out in the rain with blue bleeding all over their shirts or whatever. But it was when you start giving up things like that, and that's one reason we didn't want to have other manufacturers doing our whole product line, but we went to other manufacturers to use our designs on their product, and then we could buy back for our multiple stores.
Such as mugs and
glasses and
right, glasses and mugs. Jack, show your mug.
We had those done outside, of course.
Jack's got his fish mug. And just a clarification question, Kathy, you mentioned the place in Lawrence did wallpaper, but Handprints never did wallpaper, right?
No,
they just produced. The Lawrence company also happened to produce hand printed wallpaper.
Yes, that's.
It was all.
They did, yeah, they
I
printed
see.
both wallpaper and fabrics, probably fabrics that went with the wallpaper. I don't
Right.
know.
But you all just did
Product
the
lines.
fabrics, not the
We
wallpaper.
thought of wallpaper, of course.
Did you?
Thought of everything, but after we went to, our second printer was in Rhode Island. They were great, and I can't remember why we had to leave them, but then we went to one in New Jersey, and all our screens were put on a truck, and the truck caught on fire on the way down to New Jersey.
Oh, wow. I want to definitely make sure we open up for questions. If you have a question for Kathy and Molly, you either use your participant button and your raise hand button, or give us some crazy waves and we'll see you. Oh, Beth has a question. Jack, can you unmute Beth?
I'm trying. Yep,
I
Beth.
unmuted. I think I unmuted myself.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, first I want to thank Kathy and Molly. This has been a great as a business person. I've really loved hearing this story. So thank you for being here. I just this really isn't a question, but I wanted to ask. I do have one question, and eventually I'd like to share a memory. But my question is, did you have to copyright each design separately, and roughly how many designs were there?
Oh, we lost
That's
Molly
my
again.
question.
Kathy, that's going to be on you. We lost Molly again.
Okay. I guess we were told you can put a legend on the edge of the fabric that says something about copyright. I don't think you even put copyright pending, but okay, is it on there?
Yes.
But that does not mean that it was a copyright.
Okay.
And it's like recipes. People can take a design and move one little piece of it, change the design that small amount, and then, that's free, just like with a recipe. So that's all we did. We thought that maybe it would prevent that kind of thing happening for, big scale.
Yeah.
Did you have people?
I have some mugs. Some of my mugs have copyright on them,
Right. Yeah.
and some don't.
Yeah, well, we put it on. Well, we had one mug that I think I gave you with a note that said this is not one of ours.
Yes.
Someone found a pair of women's underpants in Feline's basement that had a copy from a pattern on a calendar, and it was a very early calendar because the ink had run, and so there was actually a flaw in the design, and they had printed the flaw. They just copied it right off of the calendar. But that was the only, well, actually, there was a story about something Molly pursued. She'll have to talk about it when she gets back, because I don't remember all the details of it. But, I think before we end, we need to talk about all the people who brought in such amazing products to make using either our designs or
Sure.
The fabric itself. But well, let's finish this part. Well,
Okay, sure. Beth, did you want to share? Do you have more questions or a memory to share?
I have a memory I have to share. I was married in 1973, and I made my bridesmaids dresses from the Handprints. So those are my two bridesmaids. You can see it was color on color.
Right.
And the opposite bridesmaid had the bows ribbon of the opposite. And then here we are. That's in the garden of the Sudbury Inn where I was married.
I hope you gave copies of those photos to the museum.
Yeah, could we have a scan?
That's on my list. And
Thank you.
This one at the Sudbury, you go to the church in a little carriage. So I'm in the carriage with my father, and those are my bridesmaids.
Oh, that's so nice.
So I just wanted to share that. And of course, I have sitting here with me multiple canvas items, and this was one unwrapped. I will never a cube of
one of those now.
without unwrapping. And the other thing I absolutely love is your paper. And I also have this as a nightshirt up in Boston.
Oh,
when I go to Boston. But the wedding memories, I have told Lauren she will be getting copies of those pictures because it was a very special day. And I'm sorry Kathy missed that, but it was something Molly missed that. It was a very special moment. So you were part of my marriage. So thank you very much.
that's so nice.
That's wonderful. Any other, Betsy? Betsy has a
Hold on,
question.
Betsy. Hold
I'll
on.
let some-
There you go,
Okay,
Betsy.
there. Thanks, Jackie. Kathy, I
Oh,
love seeing you, and I wish Molly were on right this
Oh,
minute.
Molly's back.
I'm
Molly's
back.
Molly's back.
Hi.
You can see that I'm draped in one
Oh.
of the fabrics that was on that pillow that Molly showed.
Yeah.
But I guess my big question to you is, I think that you ran the business for 13 years. I think you said, Kathy. And,
22 years.
oh, okay.
Oh, we had
Then I-
Nantucket for 13 years.
And what was your reason for retiring the business?
Well, from my point of Molly, 10 years before had moved to Annapolis. So we had divided the duties in the business.
Yeah.
And, after 22 years, the thing for me was I like to make things. And so, we had developed the knits. I was painting dinnerware for 2 or 3 years. The hard part was the winter months when there would be one person having to work in the store. And I would feel so badly that one person was in that big building and go upstairs and, try to be there part of the time. But it was, I don't know, our lease was coming due and we just didn't want to sign up for another 10 years. It was, it was as simple as that. We'd done so much. Had created, we had basically run out of ideas of what we wanted to do with it, I
And
think.
I'm guessing that you were just, both of you, worn out.
Well, I just didn't want to, I didn't want to have that worry all winter long. It was just enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Molly, anything else to add to that? Or are you frozen? I think you're frozen. Oh, darn. Toby, question?
So I'm Toby Nagel. My mom was
Yeah,
Paulie.
Toby. We could not find any of her dolls to put in the collection. Maybe there's one. You have any that you're going to donate to the museum? They would, they'd have handprint clothes. It'd be just so great because she was so important in the mix.
Wonderful. Well, I'll look around. I know I have some that, and I brought one to show. This is one of the fishermen that she made.
Oh, yeah, it's with a label on it. Look.
Wow.
Oh, the fisherman, it's so cute.
And then I still have I spent 35 years in Washington D.C. working as an ocean engineer for the Navy, and then remarried and moved to Ohio. And I still every weekend we have soup in our bowl.
Oh,
And
I hated that.
Handprints the other day. So we have a call. So here's the saucer. And anyway, I just
That's so great.
one of my memories was I was lucky enough to work for a summer and maybe part of a school year when I was saving money for college. It was a really interesting, opening my eyes to retail work, and customers and how to be tactful when people would ask, well, how come it costs this much? And I would say, because these women do so much and it's all handmade, and so you should buy this, Anyway, so I just have really fond memories, and I know that for my mom, the relationship she had with you and Kathy and Nancy, Kathy and Molly and Nancy were just treasured. So I want to thank you.
She was a treasure. You're both your parents, and yes,
for making that a part of our lives. And I'm so glad to see both of you. And I just want to thank you because it was such a part
so
of.
happy to see you. Well, there were a lot of. She was one of the people, a very talented craft person who did dolls for a lot of places, but we gave her some fabric and asked her to do some for us. And she even did an upside down doll. Remember that one? I mean, they're all these that we don't have, I don't think we have pictures of them, and I don't think we have I know we don't have examples.
Well, I'll look for some things that I can send up. And so I'll look for some things that'd
be so great. Yeah, I think 100 years from now, the people will really enjoy seeing those things.
Well, thanks. It was great to see you, and
see you, Toby.
Health and stay safe.
Yeah. You know, the other thing about our store is that we always had students working for us. In the store itself. Abby Wyckoff, you know, the Valerie Hausman, Jennifer Day. I mean, a lot of Michelle Wyckoff. And then also in the factory, we had people who would come and they would put ribbons on little bags and clip and turn the bags and cut the threads. I mean, we always had a lot of students around. It was great.
That's wonderful. And thank you, Toby, for sharing that. Other questions, comments, memories, products to share? Helene, do you have your hand up? Oh, let's see.
Hi, ladies. It's been a long time.
Helene.
Molly, how are you?
Great to see you.
I gave a doll to the Marblehead Museum about 5 years ago. So there is a naval doll.
Yes,
and I think it's the one that the upside down. She has the blue on blue dress with the blonde hair. In fact, I had to stitch the little yarn hair back on before I gave it.
Oh, yes, yes, that's right. That's right. I forgot.
No, it was Bo Peep, wasn't it? With a sheep on when you turned it upside down?
Yes.
I had one of those. Maybe I gave her just the one with the doll itself, but it was the blue dress with the little cap sleeves and the blonde curly yarn hair. But I didn't have those many pieces. We didn't have any money then, Kathy or Molly, did we? We would push our carriages or have the kids play, or Freddie and Greg went to Tiny Tot, and that's how we met. And Molly, I went to high school with Doug, and so we have a lot of memories, but I didn't have too many pieces. The few that I had, the one purse, the one scarf. There were silk scarves that you made. I recall that you first made. I bought at the shop.
I have. I mean, we tried so many things, and we had, I think, 300 products over the years.
That was very, very new. A silk scarf with just some very geometric design on it. But maybe I had 3 or 4 pieces, and that was it, because we were buying diapers.
Well, and there was a period of time, I don't know if it was the 80s or 90s, when everyone was feeling very rich, and they thought that we were not expensive enough. So, it all depends upon the economy, I think, at the time, or maybe the age of the purchaser.
The children. Well, it was a fun ride to be part of it, and say hi to all the kids, everybody.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think Molly's still off.
She is, unfortunately. Brenda, can I ask you to hold up your scarf that you're wearing? Just to hold up so people can see it? Yeah, there you go.
Oh, nice.
Very cool.
Oh, the purse.
Oh, something else coming too.
Oh, Anne with the purse.
Oh, beautiful.
Isn't that nice? Ann Boyce made that.
Here we go. Now we're having our show and tell. Everybody's holding up their things. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's so great.
Wait
a minute. Everybody needs to hold up what they have so we can do our picture.
Okay, hold it up.
Ready?
Keep holding.
There we go.
It's so nice.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you.
I wish I had my boat bag as a gym bag, a red and white gym bag.
Awesome.
I love it. It's such a
years, right?
Yeah.
I have Ann Warner's purse.
I think Beth could probably Beth and Brenda could probably keep going all day.
Judy,
Ann Warner's purse,
yeah.
Lauren.
Yeah.
The first piece of Marblehead handprints in the Marblehead Museum collection is a blue version of Anne Warner Harvey's purse.
And there she is. She's
I
holding it up.
donated that like 20 years ago.
Yes, we have those. Yes.
Because I was fairly new in Marblehead, you know, when I moved here and then got the job at the Historical Society. And I had gotten that purse from somebody when I was living in Los Angeles. So it was fascinating to hear that you had retail outlets in Los Angeles.
La Jolla.
Museum field there.
La Jolla. It was in La Jolla. So
I brought it back with me to Marblehead when I moved here, then learned what it was. I had loved it, but I never knew what it was. So I brought it back home to Marblehead and did that in the collection way back when.
So Anne, you're holding it up. Did you made that? You made all those purses?
Oh, those, yeah, those,
no.
we did hundreds of those, the little coin purses.
Okay.
For cosmetics.
Very cool.
3 different sizes of those.
Okay.
So that's the first piece of the collection.
Sure. Jean has a question?
Yes, hi. Molly, do you remember this?
No.
This is, I bought it at Skidmore. I'm one of your fellow alumni as well as a
That's
Marbleheader.
not my design, though.
Let's see, that.
Well, it was sold
Yeah,
at
I'm not sure.
Skidmore, at the Skidmore shop. It says Marblehead handprints inside.
That's
So
weird.
that's probably my design, Molly.
Yeah, what?
It's probably my design.
No, I did a design for Skidmore that had the S.
Yes. But this one was also sold there, and we all felt that it was a Skidmore design, because I think it's the only one that you sold at the Skidmore shop. But I missed you at graduation this past time. It was my 40th. I don't know what one it was for you, but you and I have the same 10 decade.
55 mine was. Ugh.
Yeah.
Got the award.
Right.
Yeah.
You got an award, so congratulations.
Thank you.
But right afterwards, your friends had told me that you had to run, so I didn't get to say
Well,
hi.
It's my husband's brother happened to was getting married.
So when my connection to you was way back when in the 70s, before I went to Skidmore, I used to come and I took your scraps and you had me make pinafores for the nurses at Salem Hospital.
Oh.
Do you remember that? I would come in and you would give me all the scraps that were big enough, and I would make like little pinafores and then bring them back, and you said they were the Salem
This is
nurses
so
at Salem
good.
Hospital
It's
loved
not- we
them.
won't be
I
much
have no recollection of that, but Kathy.
What year was that?
It was probably maybe like 73, 74, something
Would
like
have
that.
been very early.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I felt like I had a big, big girl job and
Oh,
everything.
yes.
It's not selective memory. We just don't remember.
No, that's all right. Well, Molly, I live in Saratoga. I have since I graduated. So but I'm a Marbleheader, so Jean Tierney.
You're in Saratoga?
Yes.
Oh, okay. One of the women helped. I did a program for Skidmore.
Yes.
Entrepreneurial artist. Yeah.
Yep. That's great.
Yeah.
Any other questions, memories? Oh, Amy?
So I actually am from Virginia, but I remember as a child, my mom had a tote bag of the same pattern that Anne has, and she kept all her scrunchies in it. And it turns out it's a Marblehead handprints bag that she got from a college raffle. She went to school in Chestertown, Maryland, and it came from the Annapolis store.
Oh, that was
and it's so funny because I remember this bag as a kid. I always wanted it. And she was like, no, you can't have it. It's mine. And then I get the job at Marblehead and she's like, oh, well, didn't you know this is Marblehead handprints? And I'm like, wow, interesting. So I've known about your design since I was a kid and had no idea any of the history behind it. So this is really fun.
Great.
Great. And then Kathy, did you say you wanted to share another thought before we wrapped up about people working on the designs?
Yes. I think that it's important to just talk a little bit more about the number of people who would come into the store and either show something they'd made out of the fabric or show something they'd made and thought it would be good in the fabric. We did that so many times and got so many great products. We had the Anne Boyce quilts. I mean, they were fabulous, plus her appliques. We had let me think now, because I'm having to get back into that mindset. Molly, you can help me think of those too. I mean, there were just, I mean, it was just anything. We had people who did sweaters, and then they could put our designs in the yokes of the sweaters. We had
the animal.
Nancy Sanders' daughter, Christopher, had some ideas for these long pants and a dress that she made.
We had Christmas ornaments too. Somebody made
Christmas ornaments. Yeah, Nancy Sanders did Christmas ornaments. Other people did too.
We had the stuffed animal.
Did Christmas ornaments too. Nicole Fontaine did those great animals. I mean, it was just, Gail Noyes did things, needlepoint kits. We just had, we were so excited about other people bringing their ideas. We would always just give them some fabric to take home and try it, bring it in, and we'd always try the products in the store. And usually they did very well. I mean, it was exciting to have that input all the time.
It was much more than a business. I mean, it was a community.
We were a creative hub.
It's unbelievable the you know how many people have been involved, and what high standards you kept the product in at the same time.
Everything was always still made on cottage industry, always. Except for, you know, we did clothing, and that wasn't. Well, Eve Perkins and Martha's Vineyard had a women's clothing store, and she had a whole line of Handprints things. But
we used manufacturing.
Everything that we produced with our label on it was cottage industry, usually in Marblehead or Swampscott, somewhere around there.
We would also buy products from other people of design that would complement what we were doing in the stores. We had the jewelry, the chunky ceramic beads, and we had a lot of woven rugs, things like that looked great with our products and that helped expand the line and the look.
Sue Ulrich did some lamps. I mean, there was just a lot to bring in. It was fun.
Suzanne has
congratulations on building such an amazing legacy. I mean, it's so much of what Marblehead is. It's so great.
Susie.
Hi, this is Susie Mcdonald Sanchez. I'm Kathy's daughter. And she didn't even tell me that this was live, so I have to thank Megan Warner for sending me a text to watch. So thank you, Megan. I just want to say that growing up with a businesswoman definitely inspired me and all of my friends. And for us, it was the norm to have working moms and to have them have successful businesses. I got my MBA from Wharton. I've worked in business my entire life, and I have to say it's due to my mom. So I'm gonna cry.
We put you all to work, but we did pay you too.
Yes, you did. So I have to thank both of you. You've been a major role model to me my entire life. So
well, the kids would come by after school and clip and turn bags and do things like that.
That's wonderful.
That's true.
I'm so glad you came on. Mom,
yeah,
you got to tell her
Megan.
these things. And then Anne had something to say. I believe was it Anne?
Anne, hold on one sec. You need to.
There you go.
There you go.
We were talking about all the clothes and the people that things are bringing in, and I think my sister and I would both, my mother's Margaret on the phone, she used to make stuff for us all the time. We had lots of dresses and lots of, so we have a lot of items without the tags, which I recognize because they were handmade by Margaret, but yeah, lots of dresses I remember as a little kid. Susie, you probably remember the same. We probably.
Oh yeah, I hated putting on those dresses. I was a tomboy, so that was not a high point for me.
I found a lot of pictures of you, Susie, but I made Melissa a little bikini when she was about 3 or 4 years old, and we were using elastic that we didn't realize when it got wet it expanded.
Oh no!
In the ocean. So we learned the hard way.
Trial and error, that group.
This is wonderful. Anybody else? Some last comments? Molly, Kathy, do you have anything?
I'm back again.
I'm glad.
Oh, this is just fun for me. I think for Molly too. I mean, seeing all of you, and I don't know. I mean, it's hard to. I mean, it's hard to filter everything that happened and tell you the high points, but it really was mostly about the people, and surprisingly, it was mostly about women.
Yeah.
We had one male stitcher, Charlie, I don't even remember his last name. Charlie Allen designed one. He brought a design in early on and we printed it.
Yes, guy.
But that was when, you know, really early. And generally it was a woman's, you know, not out of any kind of prejudice about women, but almost everyone who worked there was a woman.
We did not do it purposely. It just happened that way. I said we were in the middle of the ERA era there, and we just went on our own way. So
I sort of feel like Charlie in this whole Zoom thing here too.
Oh, my IT guy back here is.
Hi, IT guy. Well,
I see Fred is on here too. So
yeah, and we thank you both so much for
Beth.
sharing with us.
Thank you. It was great
Beth.
fun.
And you should be, I'm sure you are, but you should be very proud. Everybody loves Marblehead Handprints, and it lights up, you know, it lights up everybody's life, even, you know, today, 50 years
Lauren,
later.
Beth had one more
Fun to
thing.
be
Oh,
around
Beth
in
has
100
something.
years,
Beth has
see what
something.
people think of it.
Go ahead, Beth.
Lauren, I just wanted to add something. I think, now I'm gonna get emotional, but your gift to the Marblehead Museum of your designs and your work is so important. It's important historically, but I can see it being a potential future way for these prints to live on, these designs, and be a moneymaker. And I just want to thank you for that gift to the museum, because I had no idea your business was so big. For me, it was my own personal memories of my wedding and my bridesmaids dresses, and I had no idea. But I that's amazing. But I think even beyond that, your legacy will go on, and I just want to say thank you for making that amazing gift to the Marblehead Museum. So
you have to appreciate a museum that thinks about the future and not just, especially in New England, not just collecting the historical evidence of other crafts 100 years ago. I mean, I think, you know, right now it's still pretty contemporary, but I just appreciate that the museum was interested in this collection, because I think, you know, in the years to come, it will be increasingly valuable.
Well, and
for sure.
Kathy and I had the foresight to keep everything, keep all our records, and going through all the records to come up with my Marblehead handprint timeline. I was just totally amazed all over again of all the stuff that we managed to do, and that we kept all the records, mostly in pencil, but we kept them. And we were able to sort of do the whole business as a whole rather than just piecemeal and having a few pieces of fabric or something.
I mean, it's always been our, and thanks for pointing that out, Beth and Kathy. It's always been, because Marblehead is so multi-generational. I mean, you could open up a phone book and go down to Memorial Park and find family members from every war in what we call ancient history, but they're still here today. So modern history is just as important to us, and quite often the modern history is what brings together people like this, who are firsthand, and then it turns into, you know, it quickly turns into, when we hear from Susan and Anne and Toby, that, you know, it becomes the next generation pretty fast. This is great. This is this is my favorite memories so far, for sure.
Could I just ask a question?
Excuse me.
Elaine.
Yes, Jack, are you going to plan to do the program again that was canceled for this spring?
The gala event and the exhibit?
Right.
Yes, they've both been moved to 2021. We didn't want to move them later this year because we worried that we still wouldn't be able to hold them. So we wanted to try to get beyond you know, the unfortunate crisis that we're in. But yes, 2021 will be Handprints year part 2.
I hope the ladies will be
50
able to
plus
come.
1.
Yes,
50
I hope
plus
so.
1.
50
I
plus
hope Kathy and Molly will be able to attend.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, certainly. We wouldn't do it without them.
Another year.
Yeah.
I do want to encourage the museum to, you know, pretty soon start collecting all that information from the 70s, because there was so much that was going on here then. And, you know, Jeanette Harvey Bart, Toby, Tori, Kelly, all these people who are still around, a lot of them still doing things, and that should be part of that era when so much was done here.
Yeah, such an amazing sort of craft movement just coming out of Marblehead, it sounds like. So yeah, absolutely. It's definitely going to be on our radar. And so I thank you both again, and I thank you all for joining us. I just want to just to let you know that June 6th is our next Marblehead Memories meeting. It will maybe be virtual again or in person, depending on what's going on. We want to keep everybody safe. And the topic is going to be schools and teachers. So if you have some fun memories of your time in Marblehead, want to listen. Oh, I just got muted.
No, you're back.
Oh no, I'm back.
Sorry.
If you just want to listen, you're always welcome to join us. And I also want to mention that this Thursday at 2:00, Facebook Live, Don Dolliver, town historian, will be doing a Q&A. Of anything you want to ask him, we have some myths and misconceptions he's going to address, but we're open to any and all questions. You can email him at info@marbleheadmuseum.org, or we'll take them live and he'll do his best to answer them. And again, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Molly. I'm sorry that we keep losing her. And thank you all for joining us. And look out for more Handprint stuff. It's just the beginning. So take care, everybody. Stay safe.
Next year.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.